Wherever you are on your leadership voyage, it starts here.
Hey everyone, welcome to Leadership Voyage, the podcast dedicated to your pursuit of becoming a great leader. It is May of 2023, and much like last May, I haven't had any guests on the show. May is a really busy time for me with two children and the end of the school year, and it just kind of works out that way. Both Season 1 and Season 2, I am not having any guests, but come June, you will have more guests into your feed on the Leadership Voyage podcast, so stay tuned for more on that. Again, my name is Jason Wick. Thanks for tuning in. You can contact me directly with an email at startyourvoyage@gmail.com. The show's website is leadership.voyage, and you can subscribe and rate and listen from pretty much any podcast platform out there. So please do click that subscribe button to make sure you get the latest episodes coming into your podcast platform. Today we're going to try something I haven't done before, which is to kind of celebrate hitting the 25 episode milestone. I think technically this right here is the 27th episode, but we have had 16 different guests over the last year and a half, and I wanted to look back at what I'm calling the 5 biggest ideas from Leadership Voyage, from some of the guests that have been on the show over this first season and a half. I have had the fortune to speak with so many great thought leaders around management and other related topics. And of course, the reason I do this show is to be able to share it with you. Hopefully, you've been able to learn from the guests that I've had on this show to be able to take 1 or 2 items every month and try to apply those to your own work. That's the reason I do this in the first place. So thank you for listening. Share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, and please subscribe. And these shows will keep coming, and they will be free, of course, as always. So, 5 big ideas from 25 episodes of Leadership Voyage. That is what we're calling this today. And as a quick summary, I'm going to give you the 5 ideas up front. Once I give you those 5 ideas, we're going to dive into each a little bit more, why I think they're important, and you'll hear from the guest who spoke on this topic. So here are the 5 big ideas from 25 episodes. The first is that teams that reflect on their work, teams that debrief and retrospect, are 30% more effective. And that's not just a guess. That's not just a soft number. That is a quantifiable number from meta-analyses. Why do I think that's really important? Because teams that are really, really busy, a lot of times they say they just don't have the time to reflect on how they do their work. We're going to hear from my guest last year, Maria Ackerlund, who is the co-author of the 6th edition of Creating Effective Teams. Idea number 2, discovering your core values. And this was a discussion I had last summer with Erica Chestnut, who was a great discussion, a great interview. She's a powerhouse woman in tech, and she has a passion for discussing core values. Why do I think this is such an important idea? Well, because our core values, whether we're aware of them or not, help explain a lot of how we act. And when we are managing others, it is critical to be self-aware and understand why we're acting how we act. I love this topic because Erica went into how to discover your core values if you're really not aware of it. And it's something that's really valuable not only in business and management, but also just in our lives. The third big idea is mattering. This was the first episode of this season, a really important topic with Zach Mercurio. Zach is a PhD and professor, and he has been writing about what motivates people and also why it's important to understand that we help each other see what matters, that we matter more specifically. And in this topic, it's really important because people are craving this. People want to matter. And at work, which constitute a third of our lives, it's really, really important to understand why we matter and why our work matters. Fourth big idea is impact players. I had the honor and privilege to speak with Liz Wiseman on the topic of impact players and how these are people in organizations who don't just do their job description. They have a nose for what's important. And they're an ephemeral leader. They do what needs to be done. They bring people together. And they are on average 3 times more impactful than your average employee who does a good job. Not just an employee who's kind of barely scraping by. Employees who do what's asked of them, do a good job, and they really are good at it. Impact players, 3 times more impactful to the business than your average contributors. And the fifth and final big idea from these first 25 episodes of Leadership Voyage is the STARS framework, STARS. And this comes from speaking with Michael Watkins, the author who wrote the iconic book, The First 90 Days, which is all about transitions. And the STARS framework is an acronym: Startup, Turnaround, Accelerated Growth, Realignment, Sustained Success. And as we're navigating change and transitions, we have to know which of those 5 contexts we're in order to succeed. The world of business is rapidly changing as fast as it ever has. And when we're in those changes, it's really important to know which context we're in order to succeed. So let's dive into those 5 topics. I'm really excited. Very big ideas from speaking with so many thought leaders on Leadership Voyage over this last year and a half. Before we get into that, I want to remind you about Instacart. In the show notes, there is a link to Instacart. If you're not familiar, it is grocery delivery directly to your house in as little as 1 hour. You can have a single order where you're getting groceries from multiple stores with all of your favorites, handpicked by a shopper. For you, you have a special offer through Leadership Voyage that you can get free delivery on your first order over $35. So if you've never tried it, I myself am a customer. I have used it multiple times when things are busy, when I don't feel like going out to the store, whatever it looks like. We use it in my household. Instacart delivery, I can vouch for it myself. Give it a try. No cost to you for that first order, over $35. And remember, you can get those groceries delivered to your doorstep in as fast as 1 hour. So let's get started with the first big idea, which again, back to the initial list, is from Maria Åkerlund, co-author of Creating Effective Teams, 6th edition. This is about debriefing, which is looking back at work that you have done as a team to decide how you want to work in the future, and how teams sometimes they don't feel like they have time to do this. However, when you do this, when you stop and look at the past and apply those learnings to the future, your teams are 30% more productive.
The most recent meta-analysis shows that it's 30% at least.
Okay.
So it's a lot. This is huge, actually.
Yeah. You could think of it as adding, I don't know if this works mathematically, but you could say if I had a 10-person team, I'm getting, 13 people's worth of work out of them or something like this, right?
It's true. And also there's research before, there's research on debrief. So debrief is a method, you could say, or an intervention, and they've done research on that. But even before that, researchers have sort of observed teams and found that if a team is allowed to work autonomously without anyone interfering with it, they do show that kind of a pattern, that they move between phases of action when they are in the here and now, and focused on the external world on the one hand, so action phases, they're actually called that, on the one hand, and phases of transition, as they call it, when they sort of slow down and become more introverted, introspective, and they look back in time at how did we work, how did our team processes work, and then they look ahead to see how do we want to work, in the next action phase, so to speak. So there is already, even if we don't decide that we are going to use a method called debrief, there is that tendency. And the reason why this works is you can learn from the past in order to self-regulate. So you draw conclusions about how the team processes were functioning, when we work together. And then we can decide how we want to correct, to self-correct, or to regulate that behavior in the future.
So you hear there from Maria a lot of interesting stuff. It's great to be able to put a number on it when it comes to looking at a meta-analysis about all of this. And that's what's great about that book, Creating Effective Teams. If you want to catch that entire discussion, it's season 1, episode 4, Creating Effective Teams. And we talk about that book, which I think it had 15 pages of resources at the end. It's a beautiful book with a lot of interesting insights. There is a questionnaire that you could take your team through to help understand what phases they're in and all of that. But one of the 5 big ideas from talking to all of these brilliant people, for me, has absolutely been the cementing of this idea that looking back as a team on how you do your work to affect how you do it moving forward is an absolute game changer for productivity. Big idea number 2, if you remember, it was core values with my guest, Erica Chestnut. And Erica was in season 1, episode 8, Core Values, with powerhouse woman in tech, Erica Chestnut. As I said in the opening, core values, really interesting, right? It's the things that we really value. And a lot of the times we respond to situations as a result of those behaviors. So let's hear a little bit about Erica talking about core values and discovering them for ourselves.
Oddly enough, when I talk to people about core values, I ask them what their pet peeves are. What's the thing that irritates you? And then I say, okay, uncover the offense, remove the offense of the irritant. And then ask yourself why it bothers you. Right? So is it lack of consideration? Is it lack of care? What is the thing that's missing? And then what is it that you value about that? That's a core value. It's usually surfaces in things that people you don't even know, I hate that, right? It's irksome. Why is it irksome? Why does it set you on edge? And it's an onion. You peel it away and then you uncover it's a lack of consideration. It's a lack of patience. It's a lack of grace. You're not thinking about the human in this, right? It's those things that begin to surface. And I think people should do the deep work to understand what their personal core values are. You have the clarity to then identify alignment of your core values with a company's.
I mean, how cool is that? So Erica putting this kind of spin on working to uncover your core values, find the things that bother you, and then remove the negative words such as lack of, and do the deep work to understand what you value. Love it. A potentially game-changing concept for someone who manages others, someone who works with peers, someone who's managing up, It doesn't matter. Any of these, in my opinion, understanding your core values can help encourage this self-awareness that will multiply in our work and probably personal lives. Something else that came out in that conversation, again, season 1, episode 8, if you want to hear the entire discussion, is I brought up one of Brene Brown's books where she talked about what do you value, and you go through a little exercise, and the idea that there isn't a distinction between a personal value and a work value, that really it's what you value. Really interesting concepts. We're moving on to big idea number 3. And this one is pretty big, okay? This is really about people, their existence, and what makes them feel fulfilled and what helps them feel like what they do matters and that they matter. And I had a guest at the very beginning of this season in January, Zach Mercurio, who is working on a book, I believe right now, about the topic of mattering. So big idea number 3 is mattering.
Mattering is the belief that we're a significant part of the world around us. It's the belief that we are significant to other people on this planet or in our micro worlds around us. Mm-hmm. Mattering is 3 things. It's a survival instinct that's been programmed into us for 6 million years. It is a human need, fundamental motivational human need, and it is a universal longing. And what I mean by that is, let's go to the first one. The first thing that you did as a human being was you tilted your head upward and looked for someone to value you. We were searched with an encoded instinct to get a caretaker to value us so we would survive. Like all human instincts, that instinct never goes away. That is the instinct to matter to someone else. We all have that within us. Okay. It's also a fundamental human need for motivation. For example, just the fact that you got up and got out of bed today, you believed something. You believed that your life and your time was worthy of the unrelenting attention that you give it. You believe that having this podcast interview or making breakfast, that somehow your life was significant enough to keep it going. Yeah. And then the third is that we're encoded, as human beings in almost every culture to have this longing for meaning in life, for the meaning of life. And meaning is when things have coherence. And one of the ways that we get that meaning in life is, researchers find, is through other people showing us our meaning in their life, which is mattering.
I don't have much to add to that. It's a big topic. It's kind of one of those cosmic topics, if you want to think of it that way. One thing that I really walked away from reading Zach's book called The Invisible Leader and from talking with Zach a few months ago really was the power that I could have on other people. Most specifically, people I don't really know, right? Just by meeting someone who, you're doing a curbside pickup somewhere, and they bring the product or item or food out to your car, right? Something that wasn't normal or common, I should say, before the pandemic. At least for me, where I live, it's pretty common now as an option. You can walk in and get what you need. You can have a curbside pickup if you like. And just taking those 10 seconds to say to someone, hey, thank you so much for bringing this out to the car. It's making my day easier. Gosh, it's easy to say that. And every single time, 100% success rate. When I say that to someone, they smile. And I feel good about that little change that I'm trying to make a habit. I'm not saying I have it all figured out by any means, but taking that concept and kind of applying it as broadly as I can really is something that I was not thinking about 5 months ago. And it's too bad, because these are really small things that can help others think that their work matters, that they're having a positive effect on our lives just in the tasks that they do. All right, so big idea number 4 is Liz Wiseman and impact players. What are impact players? They are people who do what needs to be done. Their work isn't about what's in the job description. It's about what is needed for the situation. And this is a really aha moment. I think if we look around, we know the impact players around us. There aren't many, but they are the ones who, according to the Wiseman Group's research, have, I think it's over a 3 times impact on the business. And one thing Liz said in our conversation I loved is the org chart is a representation of yesterday's work. And it really makes you think about the emerging things that we are taking on in our businesses. So here is Liz talking a little bit about what an impact player is.
And what I began to see is that the ordinary contributor was absolutely stellar in ordinary times. But when things started to get ambiguous, uncertain, a little chaotic, that's where the impact players, as I call them, think about and handle situations very, very differently than kind of the rock solid contributor. The first is how they handle messy problems without clear owners. Like, I don't know, it's not marketing's issue. It's not sales issue. It's like somehow sitting in the middle of all of this. And what we find is the ordinary contributor, they do their job and they do their job well. The impact player does the job that needs to be done.
So in the interest of time, I've just provided a small snippet of Liz talking about impact players, how they stand out in ambiguous times. They don't do their job. They do the job that needs to be done. And there's a lot more depth to our conversation. Again, that's season 2, episode 3, just from a few months ago, and the book, Impact Players, which details the 5 different things that differentiate impact players from ordinary contributors. Highly recommend you listen to it. And just on a personal note, absolutely one of the highlights of my professional life was to be able to sit with Liz Wiseman for 45, 50 minutes and to have a conversation with her. That was really, really cool and very enlightening. Okay, the 5th and final idea for this episode, 5 big ideas from 25 episodes of Leadership Voyage, came just last month. Season 2, episode 10, The First 90 Days with Michael Watkins. The book's been around for 20 years. It's sold over 1 million copies. Working on another edition right now to revise it and update it for the changing times that we live in. But this idea of STARS, S-T-A-R-S, which is a model to understand what context of transition you're in. When you go to a new position or start with a new company, are you in startup, turnaround, accelerated growth, realignment, or sustained success? And knowing the context that you're in is very important in order to help you succeed in getting through this transition.
You know, one of the frameworks in the book that I think people have found really helpful is the one you were sort of alluding to, which is the STARS framework, right? Startup, turnaround, accelerated growth, realignment, sustaining success. The relative balance of learning versus doing really varies dramatically among those, right? You're in a turnaround and the alarm bells are going off and the lights are flashing, and it's completely acceptable that you'll come in and you'll start to do things pretty quickly, right? And maybe some really hard things have to happen pretty quickly. And it's not typically dangerous to do that because you've got, the case for change has been made for you, right?
Right.
The metaphorical, burning platform is present. Realignment or sustaining success, typically you're going to spend a lot longer on the learning curve to make sure you really understand things before you start making choices. So it's not necessarily always the case, I guess is my point, that onboarding means go slow. Onboarding means be really thoughtful about the right pacing, given the situation that you're in.
So Michael's talking about how do you handle a situation as the leader when you're going into that transition. And the pace of doing versus learning, or understanding the situation before acting and making decisions, is related to the expectation put on you as the leader for that transition. Are you in a turnaround? In other words, has someone asked you to take over a team or hired you from the outside to lead a team with the expectation that you will turn them around? It's more acceptable situationally that you would see the challenges immediately, relatively quickly, and start acting and making changes. Whereas if you're sustaining success, you're taking over a team that is basically being seen as viewed as something that's doing well, and you're to continue that, or maybe, amplify that a little bit, you probably are going to assimilate and understand the culture and how things work first, and take more time doing that before you start doing or enacting change. This is a very deep topic, but a very helpful topic, especially with the pace of change that goes on in our businesses today. I chose the last two big ideas. Not rookie mode. That's something else that Liz and I spoke about. Impact players from Liz Wiseman, and the STARS framework from Michael Watkins, because both are related to ambiguity and transition and change. And when the pace and rate of change is fast, we find ourselves in situations where we're looking for people who can rise to the occasion and be impactful. And as leaders, we're looking for good practices on how to navigate those transitions and make sure that we come through successfully on the other side. On the Michael Watkins discussion, specifically around the STARS framework, if you want to dive deeply into that, I encourage you to visit Season 2, Episode 10, which was just from April of this year. It's great to see you all again, to talk with you all again in May of 2023 here with these 5 big ideas from 25 episodes of Leadership Voyage. I'm very happy to have been able to talk with all of these brilliant people, and it brings me a lot of fulfillment to be able to share those insights with you in a format that you can take them and start to learn more about them, and ideally internalize them and apply them to your own lives. So thank you for tuning in today. Please subscribe and rate the podcast. Stay tuned. In June, we are going to have new guests with new exciting topics on Leadership Voyage.